Squid Game, there are two sides, the contestants and the Squid organization. And there are, of course, the games. On both sides, there are villains, of which some are very deadly. So in this video, I wanted to go over every villain, contestant, and game and rank them all. So let's start off by ranking the actual games themselves. Let's start with red light, green light, and trust me, I actually went on a random spinning wheel website and this game came out first, no cap. In this game, the contestants had no idea about how evil and messed up these games were. So when the first bullets were fired, everybody panicked, leading to a huge bloodbath. Gi-hun and the boys made it. But some of the last players were slower than snails and got killed once the timer ran out. This was by far the highest number of eliminations in a game, which definitely made Big Daddy the frontman very happy. As there were 456 contestants and 255 of them got absolutely finessed, our death-o-meter score is coming in at 55.92%. This means that even though it was kinda lethal and shocking, it's not as lethal as you would expect. But as everyone knows, in science, you want to test multiple times. So let's hop straight into this game the second time around. In Season 2, the game had a way higher survival rate than the original, even though Miss Nightmare Doll was strapped and equipped with upgrades. Gi-hun snitched and alerted the players ahead of time that their lives were at stake. Even with this in mind though, 91 players were still killed, all starting from that one itsy bitsy bee. So technically a bee has killed 91 players in Squid Game.
다 움직였어.
That's a crazy thing to put on your tombstone. So Red Light Green Light's second edition has a mortality rate of 19.96%, with most players listening to Gi-hun and staying still when needed. Technically though, since the frontman hadn't taken part yet, one player was missing, meaning the true mortality rate was a flat 20%. So let's get down to the math. The first Red Light Green Light had a death rate of 55.92%, and the second time, it had a rate of 20% killed. This brings the game to an average of only 37.96% dead. So now let's look at the next game, which according to the wheel is a heartbreaking one full of lies and deception, which was far more deadly. Marbles is a really interesting but devastating game. Some of the most fascinating characters met their end here through pure deception and cruelty. You'd expect that it'd be a simple 50% rate of death, with 19 of the 38 players dying. But it's actually higher than this. There were only 39 living players at this point, so player 212 couldn't get a teammate. And some teams chose not to complete the game, probably unable to live with the guilt of what they would have done. It's later revealed that 212 was allowed to live, meaning the total mortality rate for this heartbreaking game was actually 56.41%, earning itself a spot above Red Light, Green Light. Even though this game wasn't 50-50 like the VIPs wanted, this was definitely the case in our next game, Tug of War. With 80 players alive at this point, it'd be too hard to get them in a huge 40 versus 40 pulling match. So they were divided into groups of 10, each person playing the tug of war of their lives, literally. Thanks to the design of the game, it was actually impossible for all teams to survive, and it was a forced 50% cutoff to make upcoming games easier to manage. 40 players died here, and this cruel test of strength ends up in the middle of our current list. A lower kill count, but pretty high death rate. Although this was a tough physical test, it was a very different kind from one game we saw in Season 2. The six-legged pentathlon. Considering it was made out of children's activities, this game was surprisingly stressful. Since each team member had to succeed at their activity while still giving their teammates enough time to do theirs, it was a very disturbing thing to experience. I mean, imagine you've aced your challenge and you're waiting for a grandma to clear a 360 no-scope trick shot. She then of course fails because of high blood pressure, and this whole time you were just standing there waiting for your sudden and shocking death. 110 players were killed in this game, even more than the red light green light of this season. But since there were 365 players present, the huge number of death was only a 30.14% mortality rate, taking its spot on the bottom of our list. Using kids' games to torture players is one thing, but when candy's involved, well then you're really cooking. Dalgona, aka the cookie licking challenge. Delicious street food from half a century ago can't possibly kill you, right? Well, we all know how the contestants got screwed with this one. We'd all wish to get a nice, simple shape like a triangle, but Gi-hun somehow pulled through and made it with a frickin' umbrella. Not everyone was so lucky though. 79 out of the 187 remaining players broke their candy or were lacking and didn't escape in time. That's a 42.25% mortality rate, making Dalgona take the current bronze medal. But this next game might surprise you, because there is a game a lot of people overlook. Jockey is a game played by every single contestant. Although at this point the contestants have not been assigned a number yet, it is technically a game played. And as you might have guessed, this game takes the last place with a death rate of 0%, but it is an honorable mention with a 100% slap rate. And that brings me straight to another game you didn't know was played, Russian Roulette. This game was played twice. The salesman took a go at it, and with him taking the first click, there were 3 contestants, of which one died, making it a 33% death rate. And he later played a 1v1 against Gi-hun and accidentally unalived himself, making it another 50% death rate. This averages us out at a 41.5% death rate, making it an honorable mention ending above the first season's Red Light, Green Light, and the second season's six-legged pentathlon. So yeah, kinda insane. Which brings us back into the arena with Mingle. This game was as brutal as it was tragic, with players like Young Mai and Jae Sok being eliminated along with 153 others. But not everyone was killed by the guards, with player 1 savagely killing player 343 in order to keep himself and Jung-bae safe inside their room. The first round of this game actually went pretty well, with only 35 deaths. The real problem came in the second round, where 52 lives were lost, and from there it was downhill, with more and more players dropping like flies. Luckily, Thanos made it out though, although he did backstab one of his own after a rock-paper-scissors tournament. In total, 60.78% of the playing contestants were eliminated, making this the most lethal game so far. However, you could say the deadliest game was the game with the least contestants, which brings us to Squid Game. With Se-byuk being injured from a previous game, she was bleeding out, and Gi-hun begged the guards to help save her. While he was distracted though, Sang-woo betrayed the gang by stabbing her in the neck, causing her to die in third place. This is one of the only times that one player directly killed another one out of nowhere, and it led to the epic showdown in the final match, Squid Game. After an extremely emotional duel against Sang-woo, Gi-hun earned his victory, but refused to claim it, trying to find a way for both of the final players to escape alive. But it wasn't possible, and Sang-woo self-eliminated so that Gi-hun could win. This means that the final event of the 33rd Squid Game saw a mortality rate of either 50% or 66%, depending on if you count the Sang-woo demon mode murder outside of the game. I'd say because the actual game only started with 2 contestants, this should be placed at 50%, making it a tie with Tug of War. But if even the final game of the season wasn't the most deadly, what was? Glass Bridge. We all knew it had to come at some point. The Glass Bridge was by far the most evil and deadly game we've seen in the franchise. Now, believe it or not, the players of this game were really unlucky. Fans have calculated that on average 7 or more players would usually survive, but the group we saw actually play it were just having a rough match of bad luck, which was probably caused by Deok-soo, his shenanigans, and Sang-woo going even further into demon mode. Out of the 16 players who took part in this round, 13 of them met a terrifying end, but we can at least be thankful that Min-yo took Deok-soo down with her. This game had a massive 81.25% mortality rate, making it the most fatal by a long shot. But let's take a look at some of the later ones to finish up. The election. Just like in Season 1, the Season 2 Squid Games held a vote where Gi-hun tried to convince everybody to call off the game so that they could safely return to their homes. As voting is a gaming element, you could say this is actually a game. Of course, though, humans are very greedy, and when the vote was split 50-50, one group attacked the other during Lights Out. In this attempt to rig the election to stay in the games, 27 players out of the 95 who were present were killed in the brutal brawl, where they were either beaten to death or stabbed with forks. This event had a mortality rate of 28.42%, making it 9th in our list. Alongside another instance of voting causing a fatal fight, Gi-hun started plotting a crazy plan to end the games once and for all without killing any innocents, which brings us to not really a game, but let's just call it the Chaos Arc. Prior to the attempt to rig the votes, a smaller scale effort was made by Thanos to get a weaker player to switch sides, aiming to continue the games. He gathered a group together to beat and intimidate the would-be quitter, but more objectors arrived, leading to a massive brawl which ended in 5 fatalities, including Thanos himself. Although according to my comment section, we are not sure if Thanos actually died. Bathroom brawls are never pleasant, but when weapons are involved, all bets are off. 5 players died here, which was a 20% mortality rate of those in the room. But of course, there were many players who didn't take part, so it comes down to just 5% in total. Following this and the larger scale voter war, a rebellion was staged by a small group of players led by Gi-hun, who tried to take the frontman hostage and end the Squid Games by force. The group ambushed some guards and stole their weapons while they tried to break up the vote rigging. The group tried shooting their way through the complex but was ultimately unsuccessful since the frontman was in their group all along and ruined their plans completely, plotting against them from the start. The guards were also far better armed and had more men, leading to them gradually killing most of the players. Although 9 players were killed, which is 75% of the group of rebels, there were still 56 players who didn't take part in this plot, meaning the mortality rate was only 13.23% as a whole. Combining this with the stats from the bathroom, however, we have a total mortality rate of 9.7%, ending up somewhere down there on the bottom of the list. So there you have it, guys. This is the final ranking from easy peasy lemon squeezy all the way up to almost instant death, including every game I could find. But what if I told you there are some characters even deadlier than the games itself? Squid Game has all kind of baddies, from crazy player 44 to the sexy salesman to purple daddy Thanos. But which one of all the villains earns the title of baddie of the century? Today, I will be ranking Squid Game characters to see who is the worst of them all. We'll be starting with some gray area, still really bad characters first, and then move on to the big leagues. So let's start off with an angel in disguise, Kang Se-byuk, player 067. Although player 67 ends up being a G and trusting Gi-hun. She does rob the guy, smuggle a knife, and playing people like a puppet master. She even snuck into the bathroom air duct to know about the next game. She manages to survive for a major part of the 33rd Squid Game, dies after getting stabbed by Sang-woo, so Se-byuk earns herself the 25th spot on our list. Park Yong-sik, player 007. In Season 2, this guy has a similar vibe as the player before. He ends up in the deadly games because of his gambling habit, and soon discovers that his mother is also playing. He seems like a good guy, but when it comes to voting against continuing the games, he goes with Team O initially to get more money to pay off his debt. I mean, bro, your mom is literally there. That's kind of fricked if you'd ask me. Next up we got Min-soo, player 125. Min-soo is slightly more villainous than Park Yong-sik and is often seen panicking under pressure. He makes the list because he betrays Se-mi, although without any ill intent.
나랑 가자. Mizu, you win!
And also because he joins Thanos and Namgyu during one of the games. And believe me, those two will be way further down this list. Kang Dae-ho, player 388. Next comes Kang Dae-ho, a bit more evil than the other characters we have discussed so far. The former Marine appears very disciplined initially, but during the revolt, he abandons his task when he sees a dead body.
한탕은 어떻게 됐어요? 가져오고 있어요? 배우씨! 배우씨! 거기 있어요?
Which brings us to Lee Myung-gi, player 333. Remember Thanos lost his money in a cryptocurrency scam? Well, Mr. Midgecoin himself was behind it. Player 333 is a former YouTuber who promoted a scam coin by the name of Dalmatian, which caused both him and his followers losing everything they had. While appearing harmless initially, he eventually ends up stabbing Thanos when confronted in the bathrooms, which is why he makes the list. All the guys so far are in the gray zone, and they can all make the case for self-defense. But soon, that won't be an argument anymore. Choi Woo-seok. Next on the list is Mr. Kim's employee, Choi Woo-seok, who also joins Gi-hun and Hwang Jun-ho to find the location of the island where the deadly games are played. He is initially skeptical, and Mr. Kim tells him that they need to find the recruiter. After a while, he goes with Hwang to track the island as the next part of their plan. Which brings us to the real villains and crime daddies of the show, Mr. Kim. Mr. Kim may seem like a minor character, but his cold-blooded nature definitely earns him a spot on this list. He is a loan shark who doesn't forgive if the lenders don't pay his money. Song Gi-hun also owed money to Mr. Kim in Season 1, but in Season 2, he assists Gi-hun in tracking down the recruiter. But we all know that scene from the first episode of Season 1 was no bueno.
저 돈 있어요. 정말? 근데 왜 독혔어? 아유 자식 기특하네. 아이고.
Han Mineo, player 212. When it comes to a character who truly knows how to survive in the deadly games, one of the lesser evil names in comparison to who we have on the list later on is Han Mineo. Player 212 is both manipulative and dishonest, and is always ready to do whatever it takes to survive. One of her most iconic moments comes during the bridge game when she takes down Deok-soo with her.
나 배신하면 죽는다고 했지. 모색해. 덕수야.
Kang No-eul. Kang No-eul is one of the Squid Game workers, which automatically puts her in the villain category. But to her credit, she does show some compassion, like when she refuses to let eliminated contestants have their organs harvested while they are still alive. Byung-gi, player 111. Next up on our list is Byung-gi, the former doctor who lost his license and went into financial ruin. His dark side quickly reveals itself during the games when he secretly strikes a deal with the masked men. Byung-gi agrees to harvest organs from deceased players so the guards can sell them on the black market. In return, he gets information about the upcoming games. While he doesn't hurt any of the other contestants directly, his willingness to work with the staff makes him super sketchy. He's the ultimate gray area character, but not as evil as those who are next up on this list. Now let's move on to some really bad characters and work our way up to the most evil of them all. Cho Sang-woo, player 218. Cho Sang-woo starts off as Gi-hun's childhood friend and seems like a decent guy, but as the game progresses, he becomes more and more evil. From tricking Ellie in the marble game to straight up killing Se-byuk, Sang-woo's actions are definitely evil. Sang-woo earns himself the 15th spot on this list, but let me tell you, the top 10 will be crazy. Next up is Seon-yo, player 044. Let's now talk about one of the more bizarre characters in the show. Seon-yo claims to be a shaman and constantly talks about evil spirits. She also has no problem threatening her fellow players and praying for their deaths. Honestly, it's very confusing, but she made the cut in our list today. Captain Park. Next is Captain Park, who may not be competing for the prize money on the island, or the top spot on this list. He is one of Squid Game's most cold-blooded characters. He initially comes across as a kind, humble, and dependable fisherman who rescues Hwang Jun-ho from the sea after Jun-ho is shot by his brother, the frontman. For a while, he plays along with them and seems like an important and trustworthy ally, but his true colors eventually come to light when he is seen trying to sabotage their mission. Park tampers with the team's drones, disables Gi-hun's tooth tracking device, and even kills one of their team members after being caught sneaking around at night.
잠깐만! 당신 뭐야, 야!
Player 278. This guy is basically Deok-soo's right-hand man. He blindly follows Deok-soo's orders and takes way too much pleasure in hurting others. He even has a lot of tongue game, but luckily, we didn't see this man in action. But when he loses the marble game to player 101 and it's his turn to face the consequences, he freaks out and runs away like a coward. Didn't avoid getting shot by the guards though. Thanos, player 230. Just short of the top 10 is Thanos, in our 11th spot. A failed rapper who lost everything in a cryptocurrency scam and spends most of his time being cocky and obnoxious. He kills multiple people during red light, green light for literally no reason. There is no doubt about Thanos' evilness, and he is especially cruel to Myung-gi, player responsible for his financial downfall. He takes every opportunity to humiliate and attack him, and eventually tries killing him in the bathroom, but ends up getting stabbed to death. But he gets a spot this high up on the list because of the cruelty he inflicted on player 333. And that brings us to the top 10, with none other than Thanos' homie, Namgyu, player 124. Another player who is cruel and deserves to be in this list is Namgyu. Some Squid Game villains keep a low profile to avoid too much attention, but Namgyu enjoys being in the spotlight and loves violence. He's basically Jongdae's evil twin. He's greedy, aggressive, and always ready to do bad things. This is why when a fight breaks out in the bathroom, Namgyu pulls a fork out of Thanos' body and stabs player 331. Namgyu is not even loyal to the people he calls friends. After Thanos dies, Namgyu is seen holding his cross necklace and cursing Thanos for treating him like an idiot. Jongdae, player 100. Jongdae is one of those characters whose sole purpose of existence is to make everyone else's life miserable. He's constantly whining about how the game needs more death to increase the prize money, and every time he opens his mouth, you just know something terrible is about to happen. Player 100 is one of those who doesn't hesitate sacrificing others for his own gains, which makes him one of the most despicable Squid Game villains. In the 8th spot, we are getting serious with the Recruiter, also known as Daddy. Next up, we have the guy who doesn't get nearly enough hate. You might remember him as the smiling stranger who introduces people to the deadly games. It was the suit man who slapped Gi-hun in the face repeatedly during their little game of dakji. But it turns out he does way worse than that. The salesman spends his days preying on desperate, vulnerable people and convincing them to join the Squid Game. And his role doesn't end in Season 1 because he reappears in Season 2, and this return is even darker than the previous season. He tricks homeless people into choosing between bread and lottery tickets, only to crush the bread in front of them. All these incidents show that this man isn't just a recruiter for the horrifying games, but rather is someone who enjoys seeing others suffer. Oh Il-nam, player 001. You might not have expected him in spot 7, but Oh Il-nam does seem like a genuine guy in the actual Squid Game, although he was actually the mastermind behind the entire Korean Squid Game operation. Turns out he was bored and decided the best way to pass time was to create a death tournament. To his credit, he did let the players vote to leave after red light, green light, but that barely scratches the surface of who the guy actually was. He played with everyone's lives like they were pieces on a chessboard and smiled while doing it. Even worse, in my opinion, is Meathead, Jang Deok-soo, player 101. The in-house gangster and certified psychopath Jang Deok-soo. This guy kills people without batting an eye and smiles while doing it. He literally beats player 271 to death for daring to take a bite of the food he stole.
이봐요 정신 죽었어.
And you don't even want to know about his leadership style. Deok-soo forms alliances just to betray his friends the second it's convenient for him. But the gangster isn't so much of a gangster, and his cowardice shines brightest during the glass bridge game when he refuses to move forward and forces others to go first. But the real bad man of the show is Hwang In-ho, the frontman. Taking the 5th spot on this list of baddies is someone we see from up close in Season 2, the frontman. Hwang In-ho has got serious Darth Vader vibes, but without any justification for his actions. He's the one running the deadly game competition, making rules and fulfilling every sinister demand of the VIPs. What makes him even worse is that he used to be a player himself. He knows how brutal the games are and still decided, hey, maybe I'll double down on evil and start running things. Oh, and did we mention he shot his own brother, Detective Junho? Yeah, that happened because Junho had humanity in him and reused In-ho's offer to join him running the show, which brings us to the final podium of the top 4, the VIPs. Lastly, we have the gold medalists of evil, the VIPs. Those creepy gold-masked rich guys are the worst of the worst because they bet on people's lives like it's the Kentucky Derby. They are basically a bunch of overgrown toddlers with too much money and zero morals. Not only do they treat the games as their personal reality TV show, but they also actively bet on who's gonna die next and enjoy seeing the contestants suffering in the deadly games. One of them even gets mad when player 6 69 dies in Season 1. Not because he feels bad, but because he lost a bet. And let's not forget the guy who sensually harasses a worker. Of all the VIPs, that fat guy should probably get the golden medal and #1 spot of the list. These guys are not even human at this point. They are just monsters behind fancy masks. But on the flip side, let's rank the contestants. Because even though Gi-hun won the Squid Game, was it just luck or was he actually the most skilled player? Squid Game is full of strong candidates seeking to win the ultimate prize and live the rest of their lives in financial comfort. From hardened gangsters and ex-soldiers to businessmen and migrant workers, we're about to break down the best players who took part in the games and figure out who has the ultimate skill set for survival. So let's get into it, setting the scene. So before we get into the rankings themselves, we need to properly analyze the layout and progression of the games. The arena rolls out 6 childhood games across 6 cruel days of blood-soaked competition in order to earn a 45.6 billion won prize. But the real scorekeeping happens in the form of body bags. That very first round of red light, green light wipes out more than half the players in just a few minutes, teaching everyone left standing that panicking without calming your nerves will get you nowhere. By midway into the first season, we're watching tug-of-war teams face off dozens of feet above the ground, where gravity, instead of a referee, makes the final call on who wins and who dies. Then, a later episode brings us glass stepping stones with groups of panels hanging over another deadly drop, where even taking too long to decide becomes fatal and kills everyone on the bridge. Season 2 cranks up the nightmare fuel by adding even harsher games. The 6-legged pentathlon chains 5 minigames together: dakji flips, gongi bounces, keep-ups, spinning tops, and marble rolls, forcing players to rush through them all while literally shackled together at the ankles. A single player dropping pace or failing their task leads to everybody getting wiped out. After that comes Mingle, trapping 120 players in a maze of numbered rooms where they need perfect math and organization skills under a strict countdown. Get the wrong room capacity, and the writing is on the walls. You're dead. When our boy Gi-hun boards that return bus on December 26, 2024, his real prize isn't the cash hanging above the dorm. It's the chance to take down this whole brutal operation from the inside and save countless people from suffering like he and thousands of others had before him. How the ranking works. Our ranking system stands on 3 strong pillars. First comes the survival record, where making it through multiple rounds implies you've got some level of staying power for the long term. Next is versatility, the ability to switch from physical showdowns like tug of war to mental challenges like marbles without missing a beat and performing just as well. Finally, there's influence. Can you manipulate other contestants or guards through fear, charm, or strategic leadership? This list ignores how much fans love or hate a character. Moral goodness only matters when it actually changes game outcomes and can cause life or death to result. Bottom tier. Han Min-yo starts off our list at 10th place. This one wields her personality like a Swiss Army knife, flipping between flirtation, begging, and straight-up threats depending on what works on the people around her. On the first night in the dorms, she latches onto Jang Deok-soo's gang, trading a cigarette and even her body for protection. Although it works for a while, she eventually gets thrown aside for the tug-of-war challenge due to her lack of strength. Stuck near the back of the glass bridge game later on, she gets her revenge by hugging Deok-soo and throwing both of them into the abyss, a tragic form of payback that evens the score for her abandonment, but puts a hard cap on how high she could rank. 9th place belongs to Deok-soo himself. His resume consists of muscle, intimidation, and street fighting reflexes, all of which are perfect for the lights-out riot that eliminates quite a few competitors between rounds. During Tug of War, his gang steamrolls a weaker team in a matter of seconds, but once the games require thinking ahead, like with the glass stepping stones, fear freezes him solid. He refuses to move forward, just barks orders, and learns too late that intimidation fails when nobody feels like listening anymore. A mistake he paid the ultimate price for. Middle tier. Ali Abdul ranks 8th, the first player in our middle tier. During red light, green light, he snatches Gi-hun out of a fatal stumble with just one hand, practically curling a full-grown man while under the stress of possible sniper fire. Unfortunately, his kindness and gentle soul turned to blind trust during the marble game, where he lets Sang-woo tie his marbles in a cloth pouch, only to discover after the timer runs out that the bag contains nothing but pebbles. That betrayal ends the run of Squid Game's purest heart. 7th place goes to Hwang In-ho, the front daddy himself, who disguises himself as a rookie in Season 2 to monitor Gi-hun's sabotage plan. Having insider knowledge lets him predict the order of events and breeze through the simplest games, but his arrogance costs him allies. It's hard to give him a genuine ranking because of his cheats, but considering how he struggled despite his secret powers, he doesn't get all that high up on the list as a player. As the frontman, however, he would definitely have greater power. Core players. Our 6th spot belongs to Cho Hyun-ju, a former Special Forces sergeant. At the pentathlon starting line, she organizes things for her group, preventing complications with their bindings and pushing them to a top-level finish. She also makes big contributions in the revolt, teaching the other members how to use the weapons they grab. Her only major mistake is trust, much like Ali. Although it hasn't led to her death just yet, she seems to cling to people and want the best for them, a trait which can be manipulated to deadly effect in these messed up games. 5th is Park Jung-bae, player 390. This former baseball player turned Marine is a big player when it comes to team morale. His charisma and genuine persona shine through and keep Gi-hun's alliance strong, leading up to the revolt. The downside of that natural power becomes clear during the dorm uprising. The big daddy frontman executes him center stage to break everyone's spirit, and that shockwave kills more hope than bullets ever could. If it wasn't for the tragic turn of events, it's possible he could be further, but top 5 is a great spot. Top 4. Fourth place belongs to Kang Se-byuk. Growing up in the northernmost province of North Korea gave her a deep set of skills. She slips through a kitchen vent on the first night to spy on the sugar honeycomb process, then selects the safest choice, the triangle, beating the timer with minutes to spare. Exploding glass from the stepping stones game leaves her with a gut wound that Sang-woo later exploits, but she still warns Gi-hun about Sang-woo's knife before dying, showing deep composure to her last breath. She's a very solid mix of brains, strength, and skill, giving her a strong place near the top of our list. Bronze goes to Seong Gi-hun, our boy player 456. Desperation sharpens his skills in a way he never could have seen coming, maxing out the luck and charisma stats. He discovers by complete accident that saliva dissolves honeycomb sugar faster than the needle and finishes with seconds left on the clock as a result. In Tug of War, he manages to bag himself a solid team, balancing Il-nam's heel anchor experience with Sang-woo's brains, causing a surprise forward lunge, flipping momentum, and yanking their enemy team into the fatal drop. But G-Money's real superpower is influencing others, able to form an underground rebellion movement with a handful of strong players who want to do the right thing. What keeps him from the top spot is his tendency to let emotions cloud his judgment at critical moments, even after he has the experience from Season 1 to teach him better. Runner-up, Oh Il-nam Player 001 takes second place. I know this might be a surprise, but hear me out. Terminal brain cancer speeds up his timeline, but can't dull his mind. He runs Tug of War like a military operation with 3 steps forward to create slack, a low center of gravity stance, giving his team the ability to stay in the game long enough for Sang-woo's winning strategy. His Riot Night theatrics, lying on a bunk bed and pleading for calm, frees half the killers mid-attack, using their pity to survive. In Marbles, he pretends to have dementia only until Gi-hun exploits it, then reveals his perfect memory, forcing our protagonist to face his actions for the rest of the game. After the finale, he unmasks himself as the mastermind who founded the Squid Game back in 1988. Age, not talent, keeps him from the championship spot, as well as the fact that despite all his knowledge, he had to rely on a few cheats in order to make it through safely. So who takes our #1 spot as the real champion of the games? I'm sure you've all figured it out by now. The champion. Cho Sang-woo stands alone at the top. Brainpower is his primary fuel, but what pushes him to the championship is his complete willingness to do whatever it takes to win, even the darkest deeds. He uses his social skills to get information on the Dalgona game ahead of time and secretly picks the easiest shape while keeping the news to himself, and invents the vital move that got his team the win in Tug of War. When the stakes get higher, Sang-woo becomes even more deadly. In Marbles, he notices Ali's weakness in trust and kindness, creating a fake trade that empties Ali's pouch, showing his ruthless tactical thinking. His ability to compartmentalize emotion makes him the perfect Squid Game competitor, able to get his hands dirty without being weighed down by sadness. Even his final act of self-elimination during the ultimate match shows strategic brilliance, recognizing he was likely to lose anyway, so he chooses to end things on his terms while simultaneously completing his character arc and ensuring some help will be given to his family. What truly separates Sang-woo from the rest is his strong balance of intellect, physical strength, and psychological manipulation. Unlike Gi-hun, he never lets sentiment cloud his judgment when survival is on the line. Unlike Il-nam, he has youth and stamina on his side. In the brutal world of Squid Game, this SNU graduate proves that sometimes the coldest heart makes for the most effective player. Although an argument could be made for any of the top 5 to take the winner slot, I think Sang-woo is a solid pick who doesn't overly rely on luck or charisma, strength, or brains, but instead a mix of all of them, granting him an almost clean victory until G-Money, who had got there largely through luck, stopped him for good. So this has been an analysis on who the best player was in Squid Game. Do you agree with our analysis, or did we miss something major? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to see more Squid Game content and theories, click the video on screen now.